good, Illini Nation? It's your man in the middle, Deon Thomas, back again with another just flat-out fire show. Tonight, I got one of my men on, Illini great. He might laugh at that, but he is one of the greats. Went over, had an 8 or 9 year professional career, straight from the Chi, and not Chicago, from the Chambana area. Went to Central High School, went on to Dayton after that, then transferred back home to pay for his University of Illinois Illini. We got now color analysts on the Big Ten Network. We're sitting here with my man, Trent Meachem. Trent, I appreciate you joining me tonight, man. How's everything going?
What's up, Deon? Hey, appreciate that introduction. Centennial High School. Okay, don't get it wrong. But you know
I'm
what?
Sorry.
It's all good. I'm a Champaign kid. So, if you're from Centennial, Central, Urbana, I'm rooting for you. So it's all good. But yes, from Champaign, and appreciate you having me back, Deon.
Oh, no, truly a pleasure. And you're supposed to correct me on that. That's like if I'm at I went to Simeon and somebody say I went to King. Can't have that. Same city, just not the same thing.
I root for Champaign. I'm a Champaign guy, though. So I'm not, in terms of a homer for my high school, I'm for anybody from Champaign. So.
See, and that's why everybody loves you, Trent. That's why you're such a lovable guy. But hey, as I mentioned, the new gig. Tell me a little bit about how the Big Ten Network came about. I flipped on the game. I believe it was the Iowa game, and I was like, oh, crap, Trent. So I was just really glad to see you over there because I know how hard and how much you've wanted this to happen. Tell me, what happened? How did this come about?
I appreciate it, Deon. You've been helpful. Many people have been helpful. Obviously, our colleague, Brian Barnhart. There's been a bunch of people that have helped. I never thought about getting into media broadcasting, never did. Wasn't like a player that loved the media or anything. Didn't hate it. Just was on the shyer side. But having an opportunity really to fill in for you a couple of years ago, there's a game at Penn State. I just moved back to Champaign and got to call the game with Brian, and I was like, wow, this is kind of fun. And then the next season, which would have been 2 years ago, I had a couple other opportunities to call games and then just be involved with local radio, and it's kind of fun to talk ball. It kind of keeps me connected to the game. I miss playing. I didn't want to coach and go into that, but this keeps me involved and just enjoying trying to grow as a communicator. Last year, the basketball season, I did some more, including some local TV, and just thought, hey, if I could do this like at the Big Ten Network level, that would be a dream. Grew up in Big Ten country, dreamed of playing in the Big Ten, played in the Big Ten. It's a great league. Obviously, the network has been really good for the league. I think they do a great job. So, got some reps the past couple of seasons, mostly radio, but some TV, and felt like, hey, I'm ready to take a step here, and was able to connect with the right people there, and had an audition earlier this fall that went well. And I thought maybe I'll get one or two shots, and they gave me about 15 shots, in terms of a few games and a number of studio dates here in November and December. So done a few things the past few weeks, and it's just been a lot of fun. It's been challenging, but it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I can tell you, I watched that Iowa game, and all I could think of was, man, Trent is doing a heck of a job. And you did. I mean, you seem like a natural. I understand you like me. When I got that call to say, hey, why don't you try this? And I was like, man, I've never thought about that. But it fits you like a glove. Of course, I've listened to you when you stood in for me on the radio and you knocked it out the park again. As a matter of fact, during some of those games, I was shooting Brian Barnhart text messages about how well you guys sound. So I was really happy when I saw you on the sideline. So, because now then I get to have you back here and not just talk about your past career, but get to talk about your current career. And I'd like to jump right into that right now, because you've seen this Illinois team, and now being able to sit and put your analyst hat on and watch them from the outside. Before we get to any of the wins and losses, what do you think about this team?
Really talented, really fun to watch. Obviously, the first three games, you're missing, possibly the national player of the year. I think the most dominant player in the country. So
agreed.
It's impossible to analyze them in the truest form when you're missing a piece like that. So this team's going to win a lot of games, and they're going to be really fun to watch. I think the question is, are they top 15 good, top 10 good, or are they legitimate national championship good? Because I think there's that potential there, but they still have some room to grow. A big key from what I see is you really have one playmaker. You have one guy and I think Andre Curbelo, despite his game at Marquette, is one of the best in the country at creating and making plays for others. And obviously he had a bad game there, but I love his game. I think that's going to help him this season. But if I saw one weakness is I look at there's maybe one guy that's great at creating plays for others. Now, you throw in Kofi, and because of his presence, he just commands so much attention and opens up things for others. And you have some really nice pieces. I think it was a huge key in getting Trent Frazier and DeMonte Williams back. Those guys have been through so much. They defend. I think obviously Trent Frazier is capable of producing on the offensive end, at a high level as well. You throw in some guys like Coleman Hawkins with a high ceiling. He might be the best pro prospect on the team. He's really good, and he's playing with great energy. I love Jacob Grandison. Just fits in so many different ways. So, there's more I could talk about, but yeah, they're really good. They're exciting to watch, and it's, can they put these pieces together? Can they have the consistency to win a Big Ten title, to make a run in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, and those are things I agree with you that are yet to be seen, because this team has to grow. They have to grow into who they are. I've talked to a lot of people, and you just kind of touched on it here. I think this loss to Marquette helps them. I think it helps them grow. I think it really helps Andre Curbelo. But before we get to that, because I have in my notes here, I want a guard-to-guard analysis of, if you were that guard coach, what would you tell Andre, especially after that last game? But before we get to that, let's get to this. When you lose a piece, and this is what I think Illini Nation is kind of getting a taste of right now. When you lose a leader, a finisher, a big-time shot maker like Ayo Dosunmu, what does that do to your team? And how do you rebound from that?
Yeah, and they've really lost two in the first few games without Kofi. But when you have that alpha, that guy that's going to get the ball, that is, just about every night the best player on the court, it can kind of give a comfort level to everyone else, where they can kind of lean on that. You can defer to that person. They're going to step up like Ayo did so many times. So now, it takes some lessons. I think it takes some guys stepping up in new ways, because you just don't replace that. It just doesn't click seamlessly. And whether it's Andre Curbelo, whether it's Trent Frazier, whether it's Kofi Coburn, maybe with the ball in his hands, having to make some plays that he hasn't made in the past, or make free throws, that's easier said than done. So I think it's going to take some time for them to be able to replace not just a great player, but a guy that was the closer. And yes, Curbelo filled in a few games last year and did that at Indiana when Ayo fouled out, a couple other games when Ayo was hurt. But it's a bit different when everybody's scouting for you, knowing what you do, game planning for you, and to go through a whole season without being able to rely on someone like Ayo, it's not easy.
No, it's not at all. And that's one of the things I wanted to touch on. This is why it's great to have you on the show today. Because you're a guard, because you were more of a shooter, but you have played some of that point position, so you understand what it looks like. You kind of understand the mentality of what's supposed to happen. Guard to guard, what would be the thing that you would tell Andre Curbelo? Things are a little different now. You got social media, you got NIL, you got all of this stuff that's here now that wasn't really around or really as prevalent. Definitely not around when I was playing, but social media kind of started to come into the picture when you were playing, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And people have 24-hour access to you. What would be kind of some of the things that you might touch on to say that he could learn from older guys. And you're a lot younger than me, but I'm still going to say older guys.
Hey, I am. And Deon, big to guard. You know what you're talking about too. But guard to guard, there's a lot there. I think from the emotional, from being a fan, from the hype, from that standpoint, I think if I'm in Curbelo's ear, it's just like, hey, you gotta stay focused where you need to be. And I say that I don't know what he's focusing on. Not like he's not doing that, but there's a lot of distractions. Yeah. Okay, and right now you're getting into the season, and what do you have control over? Okay, be all in there and try not to get caught up in all the other stuff and have a bit of a tunnel vision. I think that's really important. And now for Bello too, he's playing in front of fans. Yes. And I think he's a guy that could go one of two ways. I could see him being a guy, and you saw us in the Big Ten tournament a little bit. I think him really feeding off the fans when things are going well, and that just even invigorates his game even more. But can he really fight that too, maybe in the wrong way, and allow the noise and the distractions to dissuade his game? I don't know. I think that remains to be seen. But I think on the court, off the court, with any of the noise, the hype, if I'm in his ear saying, hey, what can you control? And let's focus there. Okay. And don't get lost in the other stuff. And then from kind of a practical, like basketball standpoint, this is what's tough, is what makes him so good is he's fearless. He uses his imagination. He's willing to take risks, and you don't want to cut that from him. And I thought last year, Brad Underwood, I thought brought him along incredibly well.
Agreed.
Because I don't know if every coach would have, because he's going to have some turnovers where it's like, what the heck is he doing? Has he ever played basketball before? Yeah. And that just looked really amateurish at times. Or like, come on, man, this isn't, the playground. And I thought Brad brought him along really well, and it paid off at the end of the season. So now, he can't have 7 turnovers, in a game. But look, he's got the ball in his hands. He's going to make plays. He's going to have more turnovers than anyone else probably. The best players do. The best players are going to miss the most shots. The best players are going to turn the ball over the most. So there's a balancing act there. But I think that the key is for him is make simple plays. Mm-hmm. Like, he's such a creator, and he has such gifts that if he makes the simple play, his instincts are going to take over, and he's going to make the spectacular. He doesn't have to force it. And I think that's the key. Make simple plays. Don't hit home runs all the time. Trust your teammates. And you're going to find basketball will put him in situations where his creativity just takes over, and we're going to see some pretty cool stuff. But to approach it from a simple standpoint, I think is key for him.
Yeah. You touched on something that I agree with you 100%. I thought Brad brought him along great. I mean, it was just an amazing job of what he did with him and allowing him to make those mistakes. Because, I played for somebody like Coach Henson, and Coach Henson would not have been able to play for Coach Henson.
It's a different age, Deon.
Exactly. He's like, hey, you can smell the mustard from upstairs. Coach just did. That was just one of his things. He wanted you to make the simple play all the time. But with the beauty, as you mentioned, with Andre Curbelo is his imagination, is his ability to be able to just do and create things that other people doesn't. And I think that was actually, and I'm sure you'll probably agree with me, that was the part that he didn't have that safety valve or that comfort level with the guy that he could throw the ball to. And that takes me to this next one, the suspension of Kofi Cockburn. I'm not going to ask you to comment on the NCAA, but I would like your opinion on how it affected the team and how I spoke to Kofi, and I feel that Kofi is going to grow from this because he's just such a great kid. Coach has said many times, I've never seen this kid have a bad day. And it always seems that he finds the positive things even in the negatives. That was a negative in my opinion. And I'm hoping he'll turn it into a positive. But again, here's a guard that's used to having his big man. You're a guard that played with some pretty doggone good bigs.
How does not like Kofi? No disrespect to any of those guys, but not like Kofi.
hey! I wasn't even like Kofi, and I got the jersey hanging up there, and I wasn't like Kofi. Kofi is, like you said, the most dominant player in college basketball right now, in my opinion. But how does that affect that lead guard when he's used to having that guy to drop off to, when he's used to having his big, and then all of a sudden he's gone for 3 games?
Yeah, first I'd say don't agree with the suspension. I'll just leave it at that. Second, I'd say in the big scheme, I don't think this affects the team really much at all. You missed the first 3 games. Sure, you drop into Marquette that you would not have most likely if Kofi was playing.
Agreed.
If anything, it maybe gave Coleman Hawkins a little bit more of a responsibility those first couple games, which I think was really good for him. Not to mention maybe some others, Omar Payne, just some different guys needing to step up. So overall, it might maybe even help some of those guys to come away with a loss. Might be good for this team as well. But for the guards, especially Andre Curbelo, not having that big guy, I mean, you just can't replace it. Teams can't game plan for Illinois because of Kofi Cockburn, because you can't replace that size, that power, his strength, his finishing ability, and he's a guy when he's rolling to the basket. I mean, you can't just typically that weak side is going to tag or bump the roller. You can't just kind of give a little bump there. I mean, you got to commit to him, and if he gets the ball, you got to bring at least 2 guys if he's anywhere near the paint. So it changes everything for everybody. He is a release valve. He commands so much attention. So for Bello, for the rest of the team, it's a different ball game when he's in there. I think on both ends of the floor. So, I think it's probably been a good thing for the team, even though I don't agree with the ruling. But in the big scheme of things, I don't think it's a big factor.
You touched on a kid that I absolutely love, and you said something earlier that you think he may have the highest NBA ceiling, and I would agree with you 100%. Coleman Hawkins, his growth from last year to this year. I'll give you a little story. I had him on the podcast, and I asked him, what did he take from his freshman year, or what was that moment that touched him and showed him what he needs to do to be successful on this level? He picked the Baylor loss. He picked how those guys looked physically. He picked how those guys worked together, and how they were basically all seniors, as the moment that showed him what he needed to do in order to be successful. And then he's kind of, in my opinion, really showed, through the exhibition games as well as this first 3 games, even though he didn't have a stellar game against Marquette, but he still played well. Tell me a little bit about what you think about Coleman Hawkins. I know you touched on it, but give me a little bit of your insight into what you think about Coleman.
I actually first saw Coleman play at not Central High School, Deon, but Centennial High School. This would have been his senior year. That. So he was in town. Jalen Green for the Rockets was a teammate of his. So Jalen Green was the big name, but Coleman, they were in town because of Coleman Hawkins coming to Illinois. And you could see when he was in high school, just his instincts, obviously he's got a really smooth shot at 6'10", 6'11". I mean, it's a really pretty stroke. His ability to pass the ball and just really good basketball awareness, IQ, instincts. You could see it at that age. Yeah, he's skinny, he's raw in some ways, but very good instincts. And you saw that just in stretches last year. That Baylor game that he picked out in particular, he played pretty well. I think he played more that game. Kofi was in some foul trouble. He played pretty well. And so that stuff's coming to the surface now. You're seeing that more. He's scoring, he's rebounding, he's blocking shots. He's showcasing those things. But for me, you look at his height and his length at 6'11" and his skill. But what I've been most impressed with is his energy. I mean, he's playing with a ton of energy. And, you have that motor. You put that motor in someone with those physical gifts. And I think the mental kind of IQ in terms of the game of basketball too, that motor is really what's made him stand out. And he's been a little bit emotional. I don't know if he's gotten a tech or something. Personally, I love it. I love his emotions. And I think, you talk about a great compliment to Kofi when Kofi's back. He hasn't shot the ball great, I don't think, but I think he's a good shooter. And I think he can be effective there. But man, just his energy has been really impressive. And I think that's what, if I'm an NBA scout, you look at the physical tools, but the motor that he plays with has been impressive.
Yeah, COVID has kind of hit everybody, and it's been a little strange. So it shut down those guys last year. Didn't, as far as having fans in the stands, was really strange for a lot of them coming back. Now they're playing in front of fans. How important is it to have a veteran lineup, to be able to have your super seniors come back, as they have coined it, in Trent and DeMonte?
I think that's huge because you get in these hostile environments and who's bringing the team together, who's bringing some composure. I think that's a big thing. And you have some emotional guys, especially I talk about Coleman Hawkins, Andre Curbelo. They bring a lot of spirit, a lot of energy, but you need some guys that really bring some poise and some composure to the team. And I think those two in particular, in DeMonte and Trent, that's what maybe more than anything that they need to bring to this team, is that experience and that maturity. So when, maybe it's the home crowd that's kind of, stirring in their seats because the play's been, underwhelming, or you're on the road and a team makes a run and you can't hear anything. Who's bringing composure when there's some adversity? I think that's huge. And those two guys have got to be the guys to do that.
Yeah, and I think Granderson is another one that does a
Yep.
really good job of playing with that level of composure and bringing some calm to the team. But that's the plus of having, Granderson, who's now a junior or senior, but an upperclassman, and then having those two guys come back really, provides that, as you mentioned, composure when things get a little awry. And now adding Kofi back into the mix as we go into Monday's game against Cincinnati, I think we'll definitely see a different team and a different flow, as well as a different philosophy. So we're 2-1 right now. You saw the Marquette game, I'm going to assume. What are some of the things that you can pull out of there? Again, I'm giving you your analyst hat as well as your point guard hat, and putting those things together that this team should, as they looked at, maybe Brad was saying, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z, or look at X, Y, and Z as we move into the Cincinnati game.
Here's what I'm learning as my analyst hat. I'm in the green room there at the studios, and there's 3 games going on, and I'm watching 3 games, and how am I picking up all these games at once? So I'm learning how to do that. But I look at that Marquette game, and Illinois out rebounded them 50-30, I think it was. So, they played hard, I thought. It's not like they were soft or anything. They played hard. 28 turnovers, 27 turnovers, something like that. I mean, you're not going to win many games doing that. And, finishing the game, having not even getting a shot up the last couple of possessions, you can't do that. You got to get a good look up. I thought, obviously, and rightfully so, a lot of, eyeballs go to Andre Curbelo, and did not have his best performance at all. I thought he pressed. I thought he was trying too hard to make the play every time. And that's what I talked about, just keeping things simple. And I think that's, things have come really easy for them offensively, through the exhibition games and the first couple of games. And one, because they're a really talented team offensively. And of course, they're practicing with Kofi every day. So then all of a sudden you get thrown out there without Kofi. And Marquette just did a really good job of shrinking the court, of really limiting Andre Curbelo, and being there on the hedge on ball screens, and being on the help side, and being right there in the gaps, and active hands. And it wasn't easy. They have some bigger guards that were physical, and they made it tough on them. So I think for this Illinois team moving forward, the energy is great. I think defensively they've been pretty good, and that's only going to improve with Kofi. I think Curbelo's improved on that end too. But offensively, I think it's having good spacing and making simple plays. They got a talented team that starts with Curbelo. I think he's going to have a monster season. I really do. Despite that performance, I think he's going to have a great year. You've got the most dominant player in the country. So, it's so early, Deon, and there's one game where they struggled offensively, especially in taking care of the ball. And I think it's more of just having good spacing and making simple plays, and keeping it simple. They're a great team. Keeping it, and they're going to win a lot of games.
Well,
am I missing something that you've seen?
No, I think you're spot on. And as a matter of fact, I was just about to comment when we had Coach on at the post-game show. Everything you said is what he said. I was actually about to compliment you.
I didn't listen to it. So,
Yeah, see, that's my
sorry.
point. I was going to compliment you on going from a player to, sitting in the analyst chair and not going into coaching. First of all, if you had gone into coaching, you'd probably look like me. Them lovely locks would probably be either gray or gone. So smart man, you were smarter than me on that one, but you nailed it right on the head. It was more so on the offensive end than the defensive end. They did an excellent job on the glass. I thought they did an excellent job in that second and third helps on the defensive side of the basketball. It was the turnovers, the lack of free throws, which one of those things, you got the big fella down there swatting things away. He had 5 block shots. It kind of messes with you mentally. So they stopped attacking the basket the way they should have. You want to get points, easy points in transition. You want to get second chance points if you can, and things, and then from the free throw line. We didn't get those 3 things in those 3 areas, and that's one of the areas that hurt us. But you nailed it right on the head. Spacing on the offensive end, and coach said that he was like, "Hey, the ball stopped moving." And when the ball stops moving on this Illinois team, it's a struggle, especially when you have so many shooters. You have such a high skill level of guys that can put the ball on the floor after the pass and create and get the ball to other people, that when the ball sticks, it hurts everyone. And I think a lot of that happened towards the end of that game, especially because at one point they built like a 12 or 14 point lead because the ball was moving and Trent was getting some easy jump shots and other guys had gotten wide open looks at the basket and even some layups because of that. And when that happened, it just slowed everything down. But I do have to concur with you. This team is going to be better. Andre Curbelo, I believe, is one of the top 5 point guards in the country. So he will learn. And this is one of the things I always tell people about the first time I watched Andre Curbelo lose a game in Assembly Hall in State Farm Center. He lost
I didn't catch it. I didn't even catch it.
Well, that's good. Well, I don't think the State Farm people are listening to my podcast, so I may not get beat up too bad about that one. But, he lost a game in SFC. He missed some free throws, missed some jump shots down the line. I think it was the Ohio State game or one of those games where he really took it to heart that it was his fault. Before we finished the post-game show, which normally lasts about 45 minutes to an hour, as you know, that kid was back out on the court working out. And that's what shows me that, this last game against Marquette will probably not happen again. I'm sure he's a gym rat. He's a basketball savant. The kid wants to study and get better. So I'm sure he'll definitely put the work into there. But before we move on to our next topic, Trent, let me give a little shout out to our sponsors. Let me tell you about my guys over at Bet Rivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up with Bet Rivers yet, now's the time because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their new Rush Pay approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, more secure, and more reliable. With basketball season here, get in on the action by joining betrivers.com or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older, and if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. So, Trent, before we move on to the next topic, I want to throw out some numbers at you. We talked earlier about how Illinois has been playing well defensively and had a few struggles on the offensive end. Everybody's going by Ken Pom today because he does all of the adjusted things and really gets down to the nitty gritty. So nationally, he has Illinois ranked number 6 in the nation. Their adjusted defense, they're number 1 in the nation. Adjusted offense, they're 23. So that goes back to what we were talking about of what they're doing on the defensive end, and that's without Kofi. So like you, I expect that to get better for them to really turn it up once he gets in because Kofi does a great job of deterring drives. When you turn that corner and you see that big body in there, most kids don't want to go in there. But I want to touch a little bit on not just Illinois, although they're our focus, but I want to talk about how strong this Big Ten conference is. You know, again, with Ken Palm, we got 3 teams in the top 10, 5 in the top 20, and 9 in the top 50. So for anybody that doesn't listen, that doesn't know, Ken Palm is his numbers break down everything from your strength of schedule, your defense, offense, everything goes into this pot of gumbo, and then these numbers come out. And I think that proves how good, not just that the conference is really good, but how good this Illinois team is. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, first off, I know that the Big Ten didn't have the best showing in the Gavitt games here against a number of Big East schools, and coming off a subpar NCAA tournament performance. I think the Big Ten was maybe a little bit overrated last year, but it might not be, and especially coming off, you know, Seton Hall beating Michigan and Marquette beating Illinois in some of these games. I think the Big Ten is maybe better. It could be just as good as it was last year. And I think at the top, Illinois has a chance to be as good as they were, if not better than last year. I think Purdue is really good. I think they're the team to beat right now in the Big Ten. Michigan's loaded. Indiana's going to be better. Michigan State's going to be better. I think this league is pretty darn good. Is really good. And so it's going to be a battle. And I'm sorry, Deon, you asked me about the Ken Palm or just how the strength of the Big Ten. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you're right there.
Okay.
You're right there.
Okay. Oh, so I'm right there. Okay. So, yeah, I got to start with Purdue, you know, and where, first off, let me say this. Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Indiana, Maryland, a lot of schools that they're talking about being at the top, especially Michigan has been up there. They're all relying on new point guards. Most of these guys coming from a low major, mid-major school, save for Xavier Johnson at Indiana playing in the ACC at Pitt. So that gives me a little bit of pause for those teams where I'm like, let's see how these teams do. Let's see how these new guys do running the show. Mike Smith did it really well last season at Michigan. Can Devontae Jones do that this year? I think there's a lot remains to be seen from those teams, and in particular from that lead guard position, which I think is the most important position on the floor. No offense to a big guy, Deon.
None taken.
There's some questions there, but it'll be interesting who really kind of emerges as leaders on those teams. They can produce consistently in the Big Ten. But at the top, this league is really good. I mentioned Purdue. I mean, Jaden Ivey is a lottery pick and probably the most explosive player in the country. He's just electric. And then you have those twin centers. I mean, they're very different. Zach Edey. I mean, how does a guy supplant a first team Big Ten player in the starting lineup? And Trevion Williams I love Trevion Williams. He can pass the ball. I mean, I love his game. And then Zach Edey at 7'4" is just so dominant. You surround him with shooters. So Purdue is loaded. I think they're the team to beat. I think Illinois and Michigan are right on their heels. They both have some. I would put Illinois in front of Michigan right now, especially because they're more proven at the guard positions. Yeah. And I'm taking Kofi over any other big man until Zach Edey proves me otherwise. I don't know. Kofi, I think, is the most dominant player in the country, and I'm high on Indiana. I think Indiana could be much improved. I thought what Mike Woodson did in the offseason. Obviously, Trace Jackson Davis is an All-American, and then you surround him with better shooters, and so that even opens up the court more for him. So I'm high on him. You know, I had the game in Iowa. Iowa's got a lot of they lost a lot in terms of offensive production, but they also return a lot of experience. And Keegan Murray, I tell you what, man, he is good. You see the numbers he's putting up, and his twin brother Chris Murray's not bad either. You know, actually, I know their dad, Kenyon Murray, helped coach my AAU team in high school, so I got to reconnect with Kenyon last week in Iowa. But I'm thrilled to watch. You know, it's pretty cool watching his sons out there playing. And Keegan Murray, I mean, last year he was so effective in as a role player. And now, I mean, he's still somewhat raw as a basketball player, but it's just coming easy to him. So they're a team that could sneak up there. I think Maryland I know they just lost to George Mason. They have some pieces that they put in the offseason in the transfer portal. So this league is going to be a grind this year. And I think there's maybe a couple teams like Iowa potentially that people weren't really talking about that could be better than expected.
Yeah, I think one of those teams is Rutgers. I mean, Rutgers has returned so much from last year, and we know what Coach Pico does. You know, they do nothing but come out and grind you and grind you and grind you. So that Rutgers team to go along with all of what you just mentioned, this is going to be a tough league all over again. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I got my DVR set for every game that comes on. So let's move into Monday or into the Hall of Fame Classic. Now, I know the season's early and you probably haven't had an opportunity to see these teams, but historically, Illinois comes out on Monday against Cincinnati. And then the second game in that is Arkansas and Kansas State. So, of course, if Illinois beats Cincy, they'll go up against Arkansas, which is a quality program, or they're going up against a former Illini coach and Bruce Weber, who we know Coach Weber is a heck of a coach. He did a great job during his time at Illinois and has done an excellent job at Kansas State. And still, I'm a big fan of his. How do you see that? Again, I know you had, it's outside of our purview normally in the Big Ten, so I'm not asking you to really break down those teams, but how do you see that going, and what does Illinois need to do in order to be successful next week?
I hope you're not asking me to break down Cincinnati and Arkansas too much. But
I know I would not put your feet in the fire
I would have. If I was calling these games, I'd be better prepared, Deon. But I know Arkansas is a legitimate team, and they had a great season last year, and I think they're a threat for sure. The biggest thing with Illinois, though, is, and this is, you could say this about any team, but especially this early in the season, it's so much more about yourself and focusing on yourself than the opponents. What do you do well? Okay, now do that really well. What do you need to improve on? Okay, let's improve on that. So defensively, let's keep doing what we're doing, dominating the glass, and then offensively, getting out and running, establishing your big fellow that's back in the low post, getting him touches, and playing simple. Moving the ball just like we just talked about. It's doing those things that we talked about: playing simple, moving the ball, making the easy play, playing through Kofi. I thought what I'm really looking forward to with Kofi is his playmaking ability. I thought in little things I've seen just through practices, through the orange and blue scrimmage. Did he play in the first exhibition game?
Yes.
I thought he made some passes that he hasn't made in the past. I mean, and he's here he shoots 60%, whatever. You want him going up and trying to score when he gets the ball in position. But he had 5 assists the whole season. I mean, how do you do that? So he needs to improve, especially if he wants to play in the NBA. I think the centers in the NBA have to be playmakers because they get the ball in reversals, they got to get the ball in short rolls, and they got to be able to make quick plays, quick decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see how he has improved in that regard. But for this, I'm going off on a tangent on that. But for this team in general, it's doing what you do well. It's playing great defense. It's getting out in transition. And offensively, it's keeping that floor spread and moving the ball, and that's got to be their focus. There might be a player here or there that we gotta watch out for, but it's improving what you do day in, day out, and that's the biggest key, especially at this point in the season.
I love that concept. That was the way that I was taught when we played. My high school coach never watched film or any of that other stuff. His philosophy was always do what it is that you do best. And then you make everyone else adjust to what it is that you do. And then there's certain things that travel. I don't care where you are. This is basically another road game. You want to rebound the basketball, as you mentioned. You want to play defense. You want to play hard, which is those things that, as you mentioned, Illinois does best. So it's really, I agree with you, concentrating on yourself and paying attention and always makes it a lot easier when, even though you say the point guard is the most position, the most important position, always makes it a little bit easier when you got that big fella to come in there and set a screen and get some rebounds for you, but that's just, a big talker to a guard. But no, man, I after watching them, one of the things that I saw that you mentioned, you talked about the exhibition games, and I love to see Kofi's improvement because he hasn't been playing the game very long. So to watch his improvement and how quickly it has happened, he has made some extremely good passes in those those exhibition games. Cross court passes, kicking it out of the post to guys that were shooting. We even saw him catch the ball and rip it from the free throw line and get to the basket to finish. Now, if Kofi can do that, man, that's going to be hard guard for some people. But he even showed a 15 to 17 foot jump shot. He knocked down a couple. I like you, and I said I want to see him dunk 200 times. He had 79 last year. I want to see 200. I don't care about his jump shot or any of that other stuff. That's just me being a little biased. But for him to get on the next level, and you touched on it, those skills he's going to have to develop in order to make it on the next level, especially to the NBA.
Yeah, no question. A lot of people talk about shooting. A lot of people talk about defending ball screens, being able to switch. I think those are really important. If I'm gonna rank what he needs to improve on most, though, I think it's his decision making. I think he's further behind as a decision maker on the offensive end. Bigs, can you get a ball reversal and dribble handoff? Can you, off a short roll, can you make that floater? Even as a 7-footer, can you make that pass out to the corner? Can you kick it out of a double team? I think that's his number one area. Then I would say ball screen defense, which he's really good at.
Yes.
But they have him in that drop where he doesn't have to extend as much. I think he can do more than he's shown in terms of moving his feet. That'd be number two. And then I think obviously they talk so much about shooting. As a center, it's not imperative you can stretch the floor to the 3-point line though in the NBA. But hey, if he can go to 15 feet and knock some shots down, and he's got a pretty good looking shot, and then expand that over time, hey, more power to him. But that's how I would look at his progression from what I see it from a guard, Deon. Okay, not having been in the shoes of a big man, it's not improving his post-up game. For sure he has, and that'll continue to evolve. But offensively, I think it's more as making plays out of that short roll and just as a decision maker, obviously ball screen defense, and then shooting the ball. And I think more so than him making 15-foot jumpers, how about you make 70% from the free throw line? I think that's be really key for this team if he can convert at a high percentage from the free throw line. But his progression has been fun to watch. I love his attitude towards it, his demeanor. I mean, because he's a guy that probably should, could have, should have, would, I would have gotten, and I'm not an emotional guy, but how he gets just hacked night in, night
all
out.
the time.
He handles that really well. I think his just approach to development, his approach to the game it's fun to watch. It's refreshing, and it's fun to see him just grow as a player.
Yeah, I think this. I agree with you on every point you just made. His free throws look really good so far. Now we got to make sure that we find that consistency. Brad has done a tremendous job in a short period of time of putting this team back on the map and raising the level of what we're doing. I'm sure you've probably saw the other day we just had signing day. We have 3 really good freshmen that are on the team now. And then we just signed 3 or 4 more really good freshmen again. What do you think, especially somebody that has put on that uniform like myself, about what Brad has done and how quickly he's turned this around, especially in recruiting after having lost, possibly the best recruiter in the country in Orlando Antigua, but was able to replace them with his whole staff. Not just Orlando, who lost his whole staff, and to be able to replace them with Jeff Alexander, who I think is a gem of a person and of a coach, along with Chester Frazier and Tim Anderson. What are your thoughts on what he's done, where we're going, in our recruiting classes we've had the past 2 years?
It's tough to say too much about what Brad's done in his 5 years here, whatever it's been, where the program really was for the decade of 2010 through 2020, just about. And he's done a remarkable job. I thought from a recruiting standpoint, he's not just recruited the state. I know there's a lot of emphasis on the state. We're both in-state guys. You're a Chicago guy. There's a lot of talent in Illinois, but he's recruited nationally and internationally, and I think that's really paid off.
Yes.
Why limit yourself? Let's face it, fans, it's great that Iowa's from Chicago, but I think it's actually more cool for him and his family.
Mm-hmm.
Illini fans, they don't care if Darren Williams is from Texas or if he's from, Urbana. They don't care if Andre Curbelo is from Puerto Rico. I mean, if you can play and you love playing, love wearing the orange and blue, of course these fans will love you. So I think he's done a great job of that. He's done a really good job of filling out his staff. So I thought his first staff was he hit home runs with those guys. I got to know O pretty well. What a great guy Orlando is. And the staff that he's put together now, obviously Jeff has been with him, seems to be an extremely hard worker. I've known Chester for a long time. I think a lot of people in Chester, when they announced Chester, a lot of people thought, oh, this is nice. A former Illini's back on staff. Okay, that makes sense. Chester, we loved him as a player. He played hard, blah, blah, blah. But no, Chester would have been a good hire for anybody.
Oh, yes.
And I think he's proven that just in a short time here with his relentlessness, his ability to recruit, his ability to establish relationships. He's as a player, he was such a hard worker, but he's also so real. Everybody understood what he was about. And I think that's evident on the recruiting trail. It's evident to his current player. So in my mind, Chester will be a head coach before too long. So I don't think we'll have him here for that long. But for however long he is here, man, he's one of the best in the business, I think, at a young age as well. And then I've just met Tim Anderson just a few times, and everything I've heard from other people, just talking to a guy in Chicago this week who ran some pre-draft stuff with him last spring, and they're like, man, he knows his stuff. He knows the game so well. He's so connected, especially in the city. And so I've heard great things about him as well. And it seems like it's already paying dividends on the recruiting trail. So if Brad did one thing really well when he came here, was put together a great staff, and then have to do it all over again in one off season, I think the optics maybe from the outside didn't look great, but I think there was more than reasonable explanations why, guys went to where they did, and not because there was bad blood or anything. And then to get the guys that he has in here now, I mean, that's the most important thing for a coach, to have great people around you and have great talent and high character kids. And, Brad's done such a good job doing that. And that's why they're having the success.
I love this staff, and I've known Tim for a very long time, for years. And what they told you in Chicago is spot on. I mean, he is going to be great recruiting up there, and he's going to be great recruiting because he has garnered the respect from his time as a high school coach, AAU coach, to coaching at DePaul, and of course, coaching NBA guys as far as development. But he has the demeanor to be able to walk in anyone's gym. And of course, Illini Nation wants all of the players from Chicago, but Chicago is factioned in some ways. Some gyms you can go into, but if you go in there, then you can't go into other ones. And the plus with a Tim Anderson is that he can walk in any gym in the city or in the surrounding area of the city or within this state, and people are going to appreciate him because it's like you said, Chester is a straightforward, what he's thinking, what he's doing, hard worker. Tim is the very same way. And so is Jeff Alexander, which, a lot of people know him as the assistant coach, the assistant to the head coach, but they forget about the number of years he was with Marty Simmons at Evansville. I mean, he was a heck of a coach then. He's a great with X's and O's, had a huge hand in what was going on with the team last year. So I love this coaching staff. I love the previous one as well. But this one I really, really like, and I think it's going to bring a lot of success to this Illinois program. So what I'd like to do, and as you know this, you've been on here before, the last minute is yours, big fella. I'm hoping Illini. Oh, no. I got one more topic I want to touch on. One more. This is outside of basketball, even though it does have to do with another great basketball player, your lovely wife, Teresa. I just saw you guys have a new podcast, or you have one coming out. I haven't had a chance to give it a listen. Tell me about it. Tell Illini Nation about it. We want to get you some subscribers.
We did actually, Deon did have a podcast. and we did it for a while, kind of a COVID project. But we got away from it, and we're collaborating on doing something new. So it definitely won't have as sweet of a name as Champagne on Ice, but we're gonna have something. Okay, and that's probably going to be a little bit more geared towards like family and faith and fatherhood and that type of stuff. So, but we're going to have something. Stay tuned for that. But I think what you're referring to is Brian Barnhart had us on the radio show, which they podcast, and we basically talked about family, faith, athletics, all that stuff, because she was a far better athlete than me, so we talk about that stuff too. So that was fun. It was great to do with Brian, and it's kind of a fun time. So, but we want to do a podcast, the two of us.
Oh, okay. Because I saw that, and I saw the picture of it, and I just assumed, I was like, oh my God, now I got to figure out where their podcast is so I can listen to it.
But also, what you maybe you saw too, Teresa writes for the local paper, the News Gazette, and she wrote about my audition for the Big Ten Network because she helped me out, and so I knew I was going to be auditioning, and they gave me a game to watch, a previous year's game between Purdue and Maryland. And I was going to be doing with Dave Repson. And so she played the part of Dave Repson, the play-by-play. And I, did the color. And so we did that for a few nights, on the couch together. So maybe you saw that as well, which is just kind of funny that she filled him out in that way. So, which obviously I very much appreciate.
Hey man, let me tell you this. You have, and then I'm going to give you the mic, but you have a beautiful family. You and Teresa are amazing. Your boys, So I'm looking forward to that podcast when you guys decide to do it. Your starting five is probably the best starting five in the country, man. Keep doing your thing. You guys look great, and I'm so happy for you on BTN. You're getting a chance to do that thing that you didn't know you were good at, but you're great at. So the mic is yours, Trent. I'm gonna let you address Illini Nation. Say what you got to say, baby.
Appreciate it, Deon. It's great to come on Champagne on Ice again. Illini Nation, hey, I think we're in a great spot, I'd say. It's going to be a fun season. This team is loaded. This program is poised to continue having success. And if I say anything, let's enjoy it. Okay, let's enjoy it for what it is. This is a great game. We're able to be back in the stands. So let's enjoy this. Let's support these guys. And this is going to be a heck of a season. And how the table's set, we are poised, like I said, to have a tremendous run here. I think a program, a culture is being built like hasn't really been established in some time. And amidst a lot of changes and volatility in college athletics, Illinois basketball is positioned about as well as anybody. So let's enjoy it.
Well, Trent, I appreciate it, man. As always, I love hearing your analysis. Of course, I love talking about your beautiful family. So Illini Nation, if you are not following, make sure you go on and you follow Trent Meachem on Twitter at Trent Meachem. As his name says, there you go. As Trent Meachem, easy. Go follow him. And at the same time, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to the podcast, Champagne on Ice. You can find us on Apple Music, and you can find us on Spotify Music. So, Spotify Podcasts or Apple Podcasts. So make sure you go on, like, subscribe. If you can leave a message, leave one. I always improve. I love to improve. So I want to hear everybody's opinion, good, bad, or indifferent. And also, do not forget to follow Field of 68 Media. This is my hub. They have a lot of great content on here covering the 68 top programs in the country. And last but not least, want to say thank you to my sponsors at Bet River Sportsbook. Could not do it with you guys. Thank you very much. To Illini Nation, out of here. See ya in ILL.